Hey guys, welcome back for another video. We got a good one prepared for you today. What we're going to be doing is we will be focusing on our Week 8 NFL matchups. We're going to go over every single matchup, but we'll be focusing on our best bets. So going over the betting portion for every single one of our Week 8 NFL games for the 2024 football season. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments about these games or anything else, drop them below and I will respond. Every week, we go over every single NFL game. We also do the same thing for every college football game as well. If you are a football fan, if you are a sports fan, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed so you can follow along with us today. So like I was saying, we'll be focusing on our best bets for all of our NFL matchups, the money lines, the spreads, the over-unders, going game by game, breaking them down, seeing who we predict to win, lose, and what we think the final score will be. The Thursday night game is already in the books, so we're going to be kicking things off starting with our Sunday game. Kicking things off Sunday, October 27th at 1 p.m. on Fox. We have the 3-4 Arizona Cardinals versus the 2-4 Miami Dolphins. The big question for this game is the most obvious one. Is Tua playing? As of right now, Tua has been named the starter. So he will be playing, but what version of Tua will we be getting? Will he be back to his old form, or will he be a less version of himself? He's obviously very susceptible to concussion, so what kind of game plan do the Dolphins roll out? Do they go aggressive, as they usually are? They had a top 5 offense last season, but without Tua, they have the worst offense in the NFL. They're only averaging 11.7 points a game, 179.5 passing yards, 128.7 rushing yards. Defense playing solid, giving up 21.5 points a game. The Cardinals could conceivably test them here. The Dolphins, they're going to be favorites. They come into this game 4-point favorites. The over-under here is 46.5. Even though the Dolphins are favored, the Cardinals, their fan vote, they have a 51.4% chance to win this game. They have Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's kind of Jekyll and Hyde-ish. Plays a good game, then immediately plays a bad game. They had a solid game this past weekend, so he's probably due for a bad game. But if the Dolphins are struggling to get first downs, if Tua is not back to 100%, the Cardinals definitely still have an offense that can test the Dolphins pushing the ball down the field. They average 21.4 points a game, 181 passing yards, 150 on the ground, but it's their defense giving up 25.4. So if the Dolphins' offense is healthy, the Cardinals do not have a good pass rush. That's going to leave a lot of opportunities for the Dolphins to be able to run and throw the ball. Right now for the Dolphins, one of the best offensive rosters when they're healthy. Tua, Hill, Waddle, Berrios, Mostert, Achin. These guys their fantasy owners are so glad Tua's back, because without Tua, Waddle and Hill have been non-existent. They're going to get looks this weekend. I've had Waddle benched on my team. I will be playing him this Sunday. I have the Dolphins winning this one 24-17, covering the spread, but I'm still going with the under. Our next matchup at 1 p.m. on CBS, the 4-2 Philadelphia Eagles. They've been playing hot the last 3 to 4 games. They'll be playing the 3-4 Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are a lot better than their 3-4 record, but they're actually riding a 2-game winning streak right now, so both teams are coming into this game very hot. The Bengals are the Vegas favorites, 2.5-point favorite. The over in here is 47.5. But it's the Eagles who actually have a 54.6% chance to win this game. For the Eagles, starting out since the second half of last season, they had a lot of turnover problems. They've played a lot cleaner the last few weeks. They're going to be led by Hurts. He's closing in on 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. They're averaging 22 points a game. They throw for 195.5. They run for 166.7. Solid defensive play, giving up 19.2 points a game. The big question here is, are they going to play a clean game? Because the Bengals, they have the offensive talent to make this game a shootout. When you get into a shootout, sometimes you get pressed. That forces you into mistakes, which lead to turnovers. For the Bengals, obviously, they're led by Joe Burrow, closing in on 1,800 yards, 14 touchdowns, 2 picks. The Bengals are averaging 25.4 points a game, throwing for 237.4, running for 94.3. The rushing numbers aren't the best. They got to get the running game up. The running game would then open up some play action. But they have a loaded team. Right now, they're giving up 23.7 points per game. But their offensive talent, Burrow, Brown, Chase, Higgins, one of the better wide receiver cores in the country right now. That's why they're the favorite, and they're hot right now. 2-game winning streak. They want to get back to 500. This is a team that has playoff aspirations. But the Eagles are also loaded on the offensive side. They have Hurts, Saquon Barkley closing in on 700 yards rushing. They have Brown. They have Smith. I have the upset here. I think the Eagles pull the upset. They beat the Bengals in Cincinnati. I have them winning this one 27-23, so the spread not being covered, but I'm going with the over. And then the next matchup we're looking at 1 p.m. On CBS, we have the 5-2 Baltimore Ravens. Who is hotter than the Baltimore Ravens right now? They'll be playing the 1-6 Cleveland Browns. The Baltimore Ravens are obviously going to be the favorites right now. They are cruising on offense. They are 8.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 44.5, and the Ravens have a 65.1% chance to win this game. The Ravens are coming in as hot as anyone right now. They're throwing the ball. They're running the ball. Lamar Jackson is putting up MVP caliber numbers right now. Could be on pace for his third MVP. He's closing in on 1,900 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, only 2 picks. And for the Browns, they lost Deshaun Watson this past weekend. It's not really much of a loss because he's been one of the main things that's been holding this team back on the field and all the crap he has going on off the field. They're going to have Jameis Winston starting. We don't have a lot of footage on Jameis Winston for this season, but we all know who Jameis Winston is. He's a straight-up gunslinger. He can throw for 3-4 touchdowns. He could throw for 3-4 picks. Which version of Jameis Winston do we get this weekend? That's the unknown here, but no matter what, the Baltimore Ravens are built to score. They come in here top 3 offense, averaging 31.1 points a game. They throw for 250.6. They run for 210.9. The number 1 rushing team in the NFL, the most balanced team on offense in the NFL, and their defense is giving up 25.7. The defense does leave a lot to be desired. They give up 287.1 yards through the air. There will be opportunities for the Browns to throw the ball down the field. They have an awful secondary, but their defensive line, they only give up 68.4 rushing yards. You can throw on them, but you definitely cannot run on them. For the Browns, they're averaging 15.6 a game, half of what the Ravens average. They throw for 159.6. They run for 94.3. They did get Chubb back, so maybe that'll help out the ground game. And they have a great defense, but they're on the field the entire game. They're giving up 23.1 points a game. Baltimore has just stacked the number 1 rushing team in the NFL last season. What did they do? They added Derrick Henry to that. He's closing in on 900 yards rushing so far through 7 games. And they have Lamar Jackson who can throw it, run it. They have Flowers, Likely, Andrews, a loaded offense. And for Cleveland, they have Watson, Ford, Chubb, Judy. Cooper's now gone. That's going to hurt them. He was the experienced veteran wide receiver. Baltimore should win this one. I have them winning it 30-17, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. And our next game we're looking at 1 p.m. on Fox, the 1-5 Tennessee Titans versus the 5-1 Detroit Lions. Detroit is heavy favorites here. They come into this game, they are 11-point favorites. The over-under is 44.5, and the Lions have a 72.6% chance to win this game. I hate these massive NFL spreads. They're very hard to cover. Tennessee, Will Levis is supposedly not starting at the quarterback position this weekend. It should be Mason Rudolph. I don't know that necessarily helps the Titans, but it definitely doesn't hurt them because Levis has been playing awful the whole season. Too many turnovers, cannot punch the ball in the red zone, so it's not going to hurt them, but Detroit is loaded right now. Even with the loss of Hutchinson, they have a top 5 roster, they have a top 10 offense, top 10 defense. Goff is playing really good right now. Probably for the last 4 to 5 games, he's been lighting things up, and they have a loaded offensive roster. Right now, Goff's closing in on 1,700 yards, 10 touchdowns, 4 picks. As a team, when you look at the team stats, Tennessee's only averaging 17.7 points a game, only 145.8 yards through the air. They have to get the passing yardage up. You have to be able to be capable of getting into a shootout to keep up with the Lions offense, and they're running for 113.3. So they're just barely averaging over 250 offensive yards per game. That's not going to cut it right now. They need something that's going to light their offense up, and their defense is giving up 24 points a game. For Detroit, they look great. They are averaging 30.3 per game. That's a top 5 offense. They throw for 256.3. They run for 155.5. And their defense, solid, giving up 20 points a game. Only 92.5 yards on the ground. If you want to beat the Lions, it's going to have to be through the air. But the Titans only average 145 passing yards. And they have to double that, basically, this game. Looking at the rosters, Tennessee, they have Rudolph. They have Pollard. They have Ridley. Hopkins should be gone. And then on the other side, they have Goff, Gibbs, Montgomery, St. Brown, multiple weapons. They can beat you at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. They have a great defense. This is a team on course for the playoffs. They want to try to make the Super Bowl this year. I have Detroit winning this one easily, taking it 30-17, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. And our next game is an in-division rivalry game at 1 p.m. on CBS. We have the 2-5 New York Jets. They need this win badly. They're riding a long losing streak. Rodgers cannot afford to drop to 2-6 or he's going to be catching a lot of slack. They'll be playing the 1-6 Patriots. Patriots won week 1 and they've lost 6 straight. Obviously, they need a win because they haven't won in 7 weeks now. They got to get this one. They got to at least try to get to 2-6, try to get some momentum and end their drought. Right now, the Jets are pretty heavy favorites. They come into this game 7-point favorites. The over-under here is 40.5. The Jets have a 70.8% chance to win this game. Everything is lining up for the Jets to be able to take this one. That's why that should be concerning because Drake May's actually been playing pretty solid since he took over for Jacoby Brissett. For the Jets, they have Rodgers. He's closing in on 1,700 yards, 10 touchdowns, 7 picks. Drake May closing in on 600 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks. This is going to be his 3rd game as the starter. The Jets, they average 18.3 per game. They throw for 224.6. They're only running for 82.4 yards per game. They got to get the running numbers up. They have to generate something on the offensive line to get some holes for Hall. And they have a top 20 defense still giving up 20.7 points a game. And they do generate a lot of turnovers. For the Patriots, one of the worst offenses in the NFL, but they're shuffling quarterbacks. They are averaging 14.1 points a game, 151.9 through the air, 111 on the ground, and their defense has been played really bad the last couple weeks. Started out the season really hot. They've completely cooled off since then. They're giving up 25 points a game. Looking at the Jets, obviously they added Devontae Adams. He got some snaps this past weekend. That could potentially be a difference maker as he gets more comfortable with this team and with the scheme because he's already on the same page as Rodgers. He's not who he was when he was younger, but he's still a legitimate threat. Someone that Rodgers knows that he can rely on 3rd down because the other wide receivers, they've been dropping a lot of perfectly placed passes. That's obviously putting the offense in a bad situation when you drop a 3rd and 10 pass that hits you in the chest, in the hands. They need better performance, and now they have the veteran, someone they can push the ball to on 3rd down. They have Rodgers, they have Hall, Wilson, Lazard, now Adams. For the Patriots, they have Drake May, they have Stevenson, who's having a solid season, but he can't carry this team, and they have Hunter Henry, who's having a great season so far. Jets should win this one. I have them taking it 24-13, covering the spread, going with the under. But this is one of those games that I want to watch because the Jets are so favored here. You just want to make sure that they're able to cover. And our next matchup at 1 p.m. on Fox, the 4-3 Atlanta Falcons coming off a loss versus the 4-3 Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming off of a loss record-wise, but a massive loss roster-wise. They lost Evans. They lost Godwin for the season. Massive losses this past weekend. When this game first came out, the Buccaneers were favored by 2.5. But when they lost Evans, when they lost Godwin for the season, it completely flipped the other way. Now we have the Falcons as the favorite. They come in here 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is 45.5. And the Falcons have a 57% chance to win this game. This first round, when we had this game 3 weeks ago, it was a shootout, went to overtime. Both of these teams can score at will. Everything was setting up for the Bucs to get revenge, to take the second round game. But losing your experienced veteran wide receivers, potentially Godwin now out for the year, obviously, that's a massive loss here. Baker Mayfield's having a great season so far, but his 2 main guys he pushes the ball to are both gone. Someone else is going to have to step up. Right now, the Falcons have a loaded offensive roster. They're led by Kirk Cousins, who since his week 1 performance has been getting better every week because he's getting more and more comfortable with this scheme. He's closing in on 1,900 yards, 10 touchdowns, 7 picks. Baker Mayfield also closing in on 1,900 yards, 18 touchdowns and 7 picks. He's lighting it up, picking up where he left off last season. For the Falcons, they average 23.3 points per game. They throw for 248.9. They run for 119.6. And their defense giving up 24.1 points a game. Buccaneers have a top 5 offense. Will they still have one without 2 of their main weapons? Godwin was leading the NFL in receptions when he went down. That is Baker Mayfield's security blanket. That's now gone, so who else steps up to take their place? They average 29.9. They throw for 248.3, run for 135.1, and their defense giving up 25.7 points a game. This game could still easily turn into a shootout. Both teams don't have great defenses. They have average defenses. Even with the Buccaneers star players out, I think the Bucs are still going to be able to move the ball and generate enough scores to stay in this game. Looking at the Falcons, they have Cousins. They have Bijan Robinson. They have Algiers. They have London. They have Pitts. They have the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. A perfectly built offense, and the Buccaneers are going to be limping into this game. They have Baker. They have Irving. I have the Falcons taking round 2 as well, winning this game 28-24. Covering the spread, I'm going with the over. And our next matchup that we're looking at 1 p.m. on Fox, the 5-2 Green Bay Packers. They are rolling right now, playing solid on the offensive side, playing great defense. They'll be playing the 2-5 Jacksonville Jaguars, who finally got their second win this past weekend. Coming into this game, the Packers are coming in as favorites. They are 4-point favorites on the road. The over-under here is 49.5, and the Packers have a 65.6% chance to win this game. We know who the Packers are. They have a loaded offensive roster. They have a great defense. Jordan Love missed 3 games, and he's still closing in on 1,400 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, and 8 picks. He has 15 touchdowns basically through just 4 games. And for Jacksonville, they have Trevor Lawrence, who's actually been playing really solid the last 3 weeks. He's closing in on 1,600 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 picks. If you want to beat Green Bay, you have to be capable of outscoring them. Right now, the Packers average 26.6 per game. They throw for 228.1. They can throw the ball. They can run the ball. They're running for 155, and their defense only giving up 20.4 points per game. For Jacksonville, they're averaging 20.7, throw for 201.6, run for 124.3, but their defense is giving up 27.7 points a game. That's pretty bad. It's bottom 10 in the NFL right now. There will be a lot of opportunities for the Packers to push the ball, get scores here, and the Jags secondary is one of the worst. They're giving up 273.9 passing yards per game. Jordan Love is excelling in the passing game this season. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for wide open guys running down the field. For the Packers, they have Love, they have Jacobs, they have Reed. For the Jags, they have Lawrence. Bigsby's really stepped in at the running back position. He's a physical downhill runner. They have Brian Thomas Jr. having a great season, and they have Kirk. They are actually building a pretty decent wide receiver core here. That could keep them in this game, but the Green Bay Packers and the physicality should take over fourth quarter. I have Green Bay running and throwing their way to the win, winning this one 31-20, covering the spread, going with the over. And our next matchup we're looking at 1 p.m. on CBS, the 4-3 Colts versus the 5-2 Houston Texans. Houston comes into this game. They are the favorites at home. They are 5-point favorites, and the over-under in this matchup is 45.5. Texans have a 60.3% chance to win this game. For the Colts, I said last week, keep Flacco as the starter. He opens up the offense because of his passing ability. He can push the ball down the field. That's something that Richardson's just not capable of doing. He's fast. He can run. He's not accurate in any way whatsoever. Was not accurate for the Gators either. He's not going to get better there. He has a very limited skill position. He could start this game. He does open up the running game. Right now he's closing in on 800 yards, only 3 touchdowns, and he has 6 picks. But the Texans, they have a really good offense. They have Stroud closing in on 1,700 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, 4 picks. Colts, Flacco opens things up. When you can throw the ball, that's going to open up the run game. Jonathan Taylor could potentially be playing here. That's going to help both quarterbacks, no matter who plays. He can run, plus you can use him in the passing game. So if you start Anthony Richardson, who should be starting here, that will help him. That gives him the security blanket, someone to dump the ball off to, but also someone that he can rely on for those third and short situations. Colts are averaging 22.1 points a game, throwing for 206, running for 123. Their defense playing a lot better as of recently, giving up 21.3 points a game. For Houston, they average 23.6 points a game. They throw for 227.6. They run for 122.1. Their defense is giving up 22.7. They're only giving up 167 passing yards per game. They make it very difficult to run. So that's where the Colts, the rushing game has to come in. The rushing game would hopefully open up some play action, thus opening up the passing game. Looking at the rosters, we have Richardson, Taylor, Pierce, and for Houston, they have Stroud, Mixon, Collins. Collins is probably not going to be playing this game. I don't think he's coming back till potentially week 9 or 10. They have Diggs. Without Collins, that's a massive loss. Their wide receiver core is still good enough to win this game. But this could easily turn into a very close game. A potential upset alert game here. I would not be surprised if the Colts stole this one. But I have Houston getting the win, 27-20, covering the spread, and just barely going with the over. And then on Fox at 4:05 p.m., the 2-5 New Orleans Saints. The Saints started out the season 2-0, have completely fallen off the rails since then. They're riding a 5-game losing streak. They'll be playing the 3-3 LA Chargers. The Chargers are the favorites here at home. They come into this game 7-point favorites. The over-under in this one is 45.5. This is an interesting game because this is two teams that necessarily don't have good offenses coming into this game. But the Saints come in here limping. Carr should not be playing this game. Olave should not be playing this game. They don't have a bad roster. roster, but they have no motivation right now. They need a spark, something on their offense to be able to carry this team. They're going to be riding Spencer Rattler here. Rookie. Really sucks for him. First game was versus the Denver defense. Second game versus the Chargers defense. Both those teams have top 5 defenses. He's going to get pressured. He's going to be getting hurried, sacked. Sacks turn into turnovers because quarterbacks make mistakes. Right now, the Chargers have an elite level defense. For the Saints, they come in here, they're averaging 25.3 per game, throwing for 196.6, running for 116.3. Their defense is giving up 25.7. They don't have a bad defense, but this team can never get everyone on the same page at one time. For the Chargers, this is a hardball team. They play solid defense. They run the ball. They don't need too much from the passing game because Herbert really hasn't done that much this season. He's only closing in right now on 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 pick. He's an elite quarterback when he's on. But they haven't needed him to throw for 350. If you need it, he's there for it. Right now, their offense comes in. They're averaging 17.7 per game, throwing for 183.7, running for 116.3. But it's that defense, a top 5 defense, just like Denver. They only give up 13.8 points per game. They're going to make it a difficult day for Spencer Rattler. They have Herbert. They have J.K. Dobbins. They have Ladd McConkey. They should be able to take this one versus a depleted Saints team. I have the Chargers winning it 24-16, covering the spread, but I'm going with the under. And the next matchup we're looking at, this is going to be a really fun one. On Fox at 4:05, we have the 5-2 Buffalo Bills looking like a solid team so far this season versus the 4-3 Seattle Seahawks. Seattle started out the season 3-0, then dropped 3 straight, finally ended the losing streak. They got one this past weekend. They can score, so this is a potential upset game because it could easily turn into a shootout. We have the Bills here. They're favored by 3. The over-under is 46.5, and the Buffalo Bills have a 62.7% chance to win this game. You don't want to sleep on Buffalo. Josh Allen has yet to throw a pick so far. We're in week 8 of the NFL season. He's closing in on 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns, 0 picks. This guy's a gunslinger. They haven't been asking too much of him this season. Just do whatever the defense gives you. He hasn't had to force the ball, playing solid so far. And then, of course, Seattle has Geno Smith closing in on 2,000 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 6 picks for Buffalo. They have a top 5 offense. They're averaging 28.4 per game, throwing for 204.7, running for 116.3, but it's that defense only giving up 19.4 points per game. They get quarterback hurries, they get sacks, they get a lot of turnovers, so the offense usually gets a short field. For Seattle, they come in, they have a top 10 defense. They're averaging 25.7 points a game. One of the best passing teams in the country right now, throwing for 270.9, running for 97.4, defense giving up 23.4. Buffalo, they have Josh Allen, they have Cook, they have Coleman. They added Cooper, the veteran wide receiver. That's who they needed. They had a very young wide receiver core, and now they have a veteran at the wide receiver position. That gives someone that Josh Allen knows that he can trust. He cemented himself in the NFL throughout his career, and it's going to work wonders as they get deeper into the season. For Seattle, they have Smith, Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf. Buffalo should win this one. This is one you have to keep your eye on, though, because Seattle's more than capable of pulling the upset. But I have Buffalo winning this one 28-24, just barely covering the spread, going with the over. And the next game we're looking at 4:25 p.m. on CBS, the 1-6 Carolina Panthers. Panthers were the worst team in the NFL last season. They may very well be the worst team in the NFL this season as well. They'll be playing the 4-3 Denver Broncos. Denver comes in heavy favorites here. They are 10.5-point favorites. The over-under is 40.5, and Denver has a 74.7% chance to win this game. Looking at the Panthers, Andy Dalton was in a car accident. He's fine, but he hurt his hand. So they just said today they're going to be rolling with Bryce Young as the starter, so he's coming back in. They're down almost their entire wide receiver room. Massive losses here, and their defense is complete Swiss cheese. For Denver, we know that they have Bo Nix. He's closing in on 1,300 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 picks. He's staying within his wheelhouse within Sean Payton's offense, rolling the pocket, keep him mobile, short dink and dunk passes, but he's done well working within that scheme. Now, maybe they don't have the offense to be able to compete with the higher scoring teams, but one thing they do have is they have a top 5 defense. That's going to go with them anywhere they need to go. That's going to keep them in a lot of these games because it's going to keep every game as a one-possession game. But Panthers, they just don't have the offense to make it close. They only come in here, they're averaging 15.7 per game. That's a bottom 5 offense. They throw for 172. They run for 109, but it's their defense giving up 34.7 points a game. Worst defense in the NFL by a long shot. It's not even close. For Denver, they average 20.7 points. They throw for 169.9. They run for 124.1. The defense only giving up 15.1 points per game. They have the playmakers, Bo Nix. They have Williams. They have Sutton. On the other side, they're down Johnson. They're down Thielen. They will have Chuba Hubbard, who's having a really good season, but he has to carry this team, and it's not enough. I have Denver winning this one. Their defense will always carry the day. They take it 24-16. They don't cover that massive spread. I hate massive NFL spreads, and I'm also going with the under. And then on CBS at 4:25 p.m., we have the reigning Super Bowl champs, the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs, 6-0, versus the 2-5 Las Vegas Raiders. Right now, Kansas City is also a heavy favorite, 9.5-point favorites. The over in here is 41.5. Kansas City has a 74.3% chance to win this game. For Kansas City, they've been banged up the whole season, having one of their worst offensive seasons ever, and it has not made a difference. They are rolling because their defense is getting lots of turnovers, shutting people down, and giving them the short field almost every single possession. They've had injuries at Kelsey, Rice, Pacheco. Hasn't mattered. Other guys have stepped up. This offense has continued to roll. Patrick Mahomes closing in on 1,400 yards, 6 touchdowns, 8 picks. Like I was saying, his worst season ever. They're getting nothing out of their star players, but they haven't needed it. It's not an indictment on Patrick Mahomes. The guy's a 2-time MVP. You know, if you need a score, once you get to the playoffs, this guy's going to snap right back into it, and they're going to be able to score on anyone. It's just they haven't needed it from the offense this season, so they haven't given it, but it's there if you need it. On the other side for the Raiders, they've been shuffling quarterbacks. They've had O'Connell, Minshew. I said they should have just rolled with Minshew. The guy might throw 3 picks, but he might also get you 3 touchdowns. Supposedly they're going back to Minshew for this game. Looking at the team stats here, the Chiefs come in, they're averaging 24.3, throwing for 221.5, running for 128.8. The defense only giving up 17.2 points per game. That's an elite playoff caliber defense, only 90.5 yards on the ground. You can't run on them. You're going to have to try to beat them vertically through the air, but the defensive line is so great. They get quarterback pressures, which turn into interceptions. For Las Vegas, they average 17.7, and they're giving up 26.1 points a game. They do not have a good defense by any means. They also lost Adams. That's a massive loss. Brock Bowers is great, but he needs a quarterback who can consistently distribute the ball to him. I have the Chiefs continuing to roll, staying undefeated here, winning this one 27-17, covering the massive spread, and I'm going with the over. And our next matchup could have been a really fun one at 4:25 p.m. on CBS. The 4-2 Chicago Bears versus the 5-2 Washington Commanders. We were robbed here. This game should have been the last 2 Heisman winners. Should have been Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels did get hurt this past weekend. As of right now, he's not expected to start this game, but they're saying it is probable he may actually start now. He was supposed to be out for several games. Now he might actually suit up Sunday. If he doesn't, it's going to be Marcus Mariota, who's one of the best backups in the NFL, filled in perfectly this past Sunday. He's actually also a Heisman winner when he was with the Oregon Ducks. So no matter what, we are going to get a Heisman winner versus a Heisman winner. Right now, Chicago is rolling on both sides of the ball. They come in here 3-point favorites. The over-under in this matchup, 43.5. But Washington has a slight edge, a 49.9% chance to win this one. The Bears, a 49.7% chance. This game is basically a 50-50 split. Looking at the Bears, they have Caleb Williams. Ever since week 1, he's been getting more and more comfortable because his offensive line has been playing better. It's been buying him time to find those targets down the field. He's closing in on 1,400 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 picks. Daniels closing in on 1,500 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 picks. For Chicago, they're averaging 24.7 points a game, throwing for 196.7, running for 104.8. But it's the defense, a top 5 defense, giving up 16.8 points per game. Defense travels on the road. The Bears will be bringing that defense to Washington this weekend. For the Commanders, a top 3 offense are averaging 31.1 points a game, but the general, Jaden Daniels, might not be playing. How does that affect the offense when the Bears have had a full week now to prepare for Marcus Mariota? They're throwing for 218.7, running for 165.4. Very balanced offense, and their defense giving up 21.7 points a game. For Chicago, they have Williams, Swift, Moore, Odunze. For Washington, if Daniels is healthy, they have him. If not, Marcus Mariota. They have Brian Robinson Jr. having a great season on the ground, and they have Terry at the wide receiver position. If Jaden Daniels plays, another question is, how healthy is he? Does that affect his running game to where he can't take hits trying to scramble? I have to go with the Bears winning this one because of the unknown of we don't even know if Jaden Daniels is playing, and if he plays, how healthy is he? I have the Bears winning it 24-20, just barely covering the spread and just barely going over. The last Sunday night matchup is a fun one at 8:20 p.m. on NBC. The 3-3 Dallas Cowboys, they need this one bad. If they drop to 3-4, if they drop below 500, there's going to be heat on Mike McCarthy, Jerry Jones, as well as Dak. They'll be playing the 3-4 San Francisco 49ers. They're already under 500. They can't potentially drop 2 games under 500 right when they just went to the Super Bowl this past season. That would be unacceptable. They have to win this one just for pride to put themselves back into that potential playoff race. Right now, the 49ers are slight favorites. They come in here 4.5-point favorites. The over-under is 47.5, and the 49ers have a 67.5% chance to win this game. Looking at the matchup, obviously both of these teams need this win. Dak is closing in on 1,700 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, 6 picks. Way too many interceptions so far this season. Brock Purdy closing in on 1,900 yards, 9 touchdowns, 7 picks. The big issue for the 49ers, health. They've been really banged up. They just lost Ayuk for the season. McCaffrey hasn't played in forever. They've been down Debo. Yes, other guys have stepped up. Kittle's been banged up. Mason, Jennings. When this team is healthy, it is the best top-to-bottom roster in the NFL, but that's when they're healthy. They haven't been healthy on both sides of the ball so far. They're just barely getting by, but they need to get the win here just to continue getting by. For the Cowboys, their issue has been several things. The running game, the offensive line, having wide receivers outside of CeeDee Lamb, and their defense has been atrocious, one of the worst in the NFL. They come into this game, they're averaging 21 points a game, throwing for 259.3, only running for 77.2 yards. Their strength used to be their offensive line, their run game, and their defense. All of those are bad right now. They have to get the running game up. They need a 1,000-yard back, and they need it bad, and their defense is giving up 28 points per game. That's awful. What happened to the Cowboys' defense? I don't know, but we're halfway through the season. Things haven't gotten any better. For San Francisco, they're averaging 25.7, throwing for 254.4, running for 149.9, and their defense is playing solid, giving up 22.6 points a game. For Dallas, they have Dak Prescott. Dowdle only has 246 yards rushing. He's only averaging 30 to 40 rushing yards per game as the leading rusher. That's not going to cut it. Something has to step up here. There's way too much on Dak right now to carry this offense, and he's just not capable of doing that at the highest level. And they have CeeDee Lamb closing in on 500 yards. For San Francisco, they have Purdy, they have Mason, they have Jennings, they have Kittle, they have Debo. I have San Francisco winning this one in a shootout, actually, winning it 30-27. Like I said, both teams need this game. They do not cover the spread, but we're going with the over. And our final game is our Monday night game at 8:15 on ESPN. The 2-5 New York Giants, they need something to ignite that offense versus the 5-2 Pittsburgh Steelers. Right now, the Steelers at home, they are the favorites. They come in here 6-point favorites, over under 36.5, and they have a 68.7% chance to win this game. For the Giants, obviously, Daniel Jones is still supposed to be getting the start here, as the last thing that I heard. He's closing in on 1,500 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 picks. He's not the answer at the quarterback position. They don't have a bad running game. They have Neighbors, who's a legitimate wide receiver number 1. They need a quarterback, someone who can accurately distribute the ball. They got to rip the Band-Aid off. They have to bring in someone this offseason to start for them for 2025. And then on the other side, the Steelers have kind of been shuffling quarterbacks. They're going to start Russell Wilson here. He played a great game this past weekend. Worst case scenario, no matter what, you have Justin Fields there in the wings. For the Giants, they're averaging 14.1 points per game. That's a bottom 5 offense in the NFL. They throw for 189. They run for 101.6. But they do have a solid defense. They're going to be able to rely on that defense on the road. They're only giving up 21.3 points a game. For Pittsburgh, they average 23 a game. They're only giving up 14.4 points a game. That's a top 5 defense. Look for TJ Watt to have a field day here. He's going to be the namesake on the defensive side, getting quarterback hurries. The Giants are going to be forced to have to double team him this whole game, but one thing that you should remember about the Steelers, this is a Mike Tomlin-led team. They play conservative, hard-nosed, disciplined football. They run the ball, They play defense. They don't make mistakes. They win every game. One possession wins. They don't blow anyone out. They play you tough, and they wear you out over 4 quarters. They're going to run downhill on you. They have Najee Harris. Expect a steady dose of Harris the whole game. Can you stop them running for 4 quarters? Then they have Pickens for those 3rd and long situations. I have the Steelers winning this one very closely in the 4th quarter, winning it 20-17, not covering the spread, and just barely going with the over. So that's a breakdown of all of our NFL Week 8 matchups, the best bets for all of them. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them below, and I will respond. Thank you.